One. All right, welcome back to Stan Pockrus's After Chat Zoom room. We're also doing a field trip from block party number 149 over here. This is our 149th 24-hour collective intelligence block party, currently on field trip over to the After Chat room. And Stan's taking a break, and I'd really love to open up this discussion and just hear from everyone about this, really about two things. Number one, the intention of bringing humanity together as a network of networks, of groups, conversations, and how do we do it? Right now, we're so disconnected. If you consider the Zoomosphere, there are millions of Zoom meetings happening all over the place, all the time, every week. I presume most of them have something to do with commerce or business, and the others that don't have something to do with, some, nonprofit-like intention or mission or organization or whatever, some, social or environmental cause or others are purely social. But the ones that I'm most interested in are the second to the last category I mentioned, the ones that are in the direction of some nonprofit or other, or some social and or environmental mission, right? I would take all of those together and put them in one big category called everything pertaining to saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth, including saving, healing, and transforming humanity, which is a species which in many ways we've lost our way and are groping to find each other and to find our way again, to regain the thread, right, of the beauty that it is and can be to be human. Okay, Carol Sue, you're in a workshop. And let me just read what you're saying there.
I'm just a fly on the wall. I'm listening to you. I'm part of this, and I will break in if I have something that I can't stop myself.
Oh, no, no,
please. I just wanted to explain. This will be over in a little bit when it is on here 100%.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I look forward to that, and I'm really glad you're a fly on the wall in the meantime. I'll type the name of my dear friend. It's Harriet Whitman Lee. I don't know how Google.
I wrote her name down. Exactly. Who is she?
She's a dear friend of the family. We used to have dinners together regularly. Dear friend of my father, and she was one of the pioneers in mediation. We're hearing your background noise there, Carol.
Right. That's And he's not saying something that important right now, but it's on marketing, and I do need that. So, okay.
Yeah, no, understood. But anyway, I just raised her as an example because she seemed like an example of the kind of stuff that was happening in the Electronic Networking Association, and actually another great thinker in that department, Josef from Alaska, just joined my, you Joseph, just joined my Zoom room. We got two Zoom rooms going at once here. We're actually, the block party is on a field trip to the After Chat room. So I'm going to paste that into the chat here.
Oh, that's great. So this is part of the conversations?
This is part of the conversation. So the conversation is now branching out and, going on field trips so that
I love it.
Yeah, so that we can connect. I mean, it's a very, you could call it, anyway, Joseph, feel free to join us over here.
And Jamin, I'm giving you a field trip right now. This is my view.
Oh.
This is the Caribbean Sea. And that's an avocado tree right there. And those are palm trees that are actually going over the water.
I actually have been to Belize a number of times and have swam across the Belize River. We used to cross the river on a ferry, not the ferry most people think about, but a Belize River style ferry tethered with a steel cable that you'd crank a crank to get across. So anyway, I'm
okay. Is that up in Cayo?
No, it's I'll just tell you how to get there. So if you were driving from Belize City to Belmopan, most of the way to Belmopan, you would turn off and go down a dirt road a few miles, and then you'd get to the Belize River, and that's where you'd cross the aforementioned ferry. And some friends of mine had 11,000 acres on the other side of Belize River, just out in the middle of nowhere. And we were
Are
looking
they
for,
still here?
no, 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 no. They sold the property years ago. But we were looking for sustainable ways of doing basically like an edible living forest. And we were harvesting the cahoon nuts, those little mini coconut kind of things, for both feed, food, and activated carbon. Anyway, we did all kinds of cool stuff. But yeah, I took a number of trips to Belize back in the day. This was back in the
And I have these little boys and girls, they come to my door selling the cahoon cabbage, which is really hearts of palm,
yeah.
which are tiny trees of the cahoon palm tree.
Oh,
And so what's amazing is I have a chopper dicer, one of those wonderful little things that you just, and it makes these teeny little diced things. And then I boil it and it gives it the consistency of mushrooms, like cooked mushrooms. And I use it in soups and just eat it, mix it with vegetables and lots of spices. But I do a show on Facebook, and it's not I call it a show, but I just keep going live. And it's Sarah Sue's Kitchen, Conscious Cooking in Belize, where I take the foods that are boring and I make them gourmet, and I cook with love.
wow.
And so my Facebook is Carol Sue Engelman, which is what I have up there, even though it is Sarah Sue's Kitchen. So that might be a little confusing, but apparently I just had one that went viral. I didn't know it, but I had someone come to my door from the forestry department because, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody, but someone had trapped a raccoon and brought it to me, and I cooked it, and I put that up on, and I called it, because they were living on my roof, but they were eating the chickens and roosters next door. And I put it, the thing, from roof to table. Well, apparently it's illegal. And so they sent someone all the way from Belmopan, and I'm in Punta Gorda. I'm at the end of the world down here. And they had someone drive down to talk to me, came to my door, knew exactly where I lived, and said they could find me, but they didn't because it was only one, but in actuality it was like 3. But in any case, the beauty is I had tried to convince them not to kill, and that they could put that raccoon in a trap because they had it in a trap, put it on my truck, and I'll drive it out somewhere and let it loose. Well, they wouldn't do that. But now I have a number where the forestry will come and pick it up. And so from now on, we will save the rest of them. And I want to say how grateful I am to the raccoons who got that rooster. Because it was really loud. Between the two, I'd rather have the raccoons on my roof.
Wow. Oh my goodness. All right.
That was more than you expected, wasn't it?
That was a little bit more than I expected. From roof to table. I've heard, from bean to bar and from farm to table, but roof to table. And in fact, if you turned it into dog food, you could call it from roof to roof.
Well, that's great, because they just got a really big one last night, and they came and got me to come look at it, and it was at least 25 pounds. It was the biggest one yet, and beautiful. And I'm actually, they're bringing me the pelt, and they already brought me the pelt, but and I didn't want him to kill it, but it was too late. He'd already killed it and then came and got me, and because otherwise I would have made sure it got saved. And what was I going to say about it? That was funny. Roof to table. Oh, there was a point to that. It had to do with what you just said about roof to table.
Or about Belize and about edible living forests.
Well, I'll go back to what I really wanted to address with you, Jamin.
Sure.
And if you ever want to bring someone back, what I'm really looking for is philanthropic businesses that want to create cottage industries among the 64 Mayan villages that speak English here. And they all have women's groups, and they are legal co-ops, so they do not pay taxes. I actually belong to one. And then we will have the World Bridger Day Mayan Collective, which will collect the money from all the women's groups and then redistribute it evenly among all of them in the ancient Mayan tradition and create a whole new economy. There will be enough money for everybody. We can have a private bank. Maybe Stanley will help us with that one. And then they can just draw out whatever they need, and they will only need to work maybe 30 days on, 30 days off, and maybe not long days. They can be with their families, and they can rotate jobs, so they actually learn different skills. If they're growing something, they've done their bit, and it doesn't matter what village it comes from, because they're all going to share. So like a food that has bananas, well, everybody's going to contribute to the bananas, or coconut. But food, clothing, and even a conscious movie industry. So if you know of anybody in your whole network that may be interested, I want to start doing a podcast every 20 days on World Bridger Day, and invite different philanthropic companies. Well, I did an AI on this, and I asked what are, I asked GPT chat, and it came up with 8 great different industries, and how the proceeds will also help different aspects, the people, the permaculture, etc. And it was just amazing. I mean, my hat's off to AI GP chat, better than I could have come up with. And but like Tom Shoes, who gives away a pair of shoes to everyone who buys a pair. He gives one away for free. Well, that kind of industry, but also the trees, the empress trees that we learned about on Humanity Rising. This would be a perfect place for that. It's a hardwood. They've already raped the country of the mahogany, and they could use this because it grows 80 feet in 10 years and is a nice big canopy for the cacao. I mean, there are so many things that we could do. So if you know of anybody that would be interested, please friend me at Carol Sue Engelman, and then we can be messenger. We can do messenger.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you for letting me say that.
Wonderful. Well, I'd like to invite everyone to speak, in particular those who haven't spoken yet. And oh, Mary has to go. Okay, you will probably reconvene. We'll probably see you back at the block party in the other room there. So, and thank you so much for joining, Mary. All right, we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. Have a good
Thank you. Bye, Mary.
Have a good day, everyone. I hope I can join again later.
All right. No. And love to Kale and Dalton.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Right. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Mary.
See you soon.
And I did not get the answer on that. Was that the intentional?
The I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, it's theconversation.cc. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
No, not those simple ones. Somebody put in the chat. I have to go back to the chat to find it. A big long URL to get into something.
Yeah.
And let me see. I'll have to go find it, and it's way up there too. So.
Well, if it's the conversation, it's not.
No, it wasn't the conversation. I know that one.
Okay.
I'm part of that one. Let's see here. Oh, it wasn't that far back, was it? Maybe. Yeah, here it is. Okay, I think maybe Ia put it in maybe, but it's dailyuw.com/news/Jamin-Shively -the-man-behind. Then it goes -the-Darth-Vader-mask /
Here,
article.
let's
I mean, it goes on and on.
let's
Okay,
let's
I
click
found
on
it.
it. Let's click on it and see if it's an actual meaningful link.
Okay, you do that because I'm on my phone. Don't know how to
Okay.
do it.
All right.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
about a
yeah,
third way.
that's the right link. Somebody typed the twice, and it is what it is. So, but the link works. It's the correct
Oh,
link.
so that's correct. Okay, good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wrote it that way and thought I can always cross out the. And that was a long one to write down, by the way.
Oh goodness. No, there ought to be a way that you can save it to your phone. Maybe just
Well,
maybe just
except
take
that
it.
my phone's, all my space is used up.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
My
Well,
life
anyway,
is too full.
yeah. Oh, the link is up there in the chat. You could just save the whole chat, Suzanne. And it's an article they wrote about me at the University of Washington when I was doing my campaign to run the criminal drug cartels out of the state of Washington. I had been one of the leaders in the cannabis legalization movement here in the state of Washington, dating back to 2012, and worked with President Vicente Fox of Mexico. And for the better part of a year there, I was probably the most visible public figure in the cannabis legalization movement in the hemisphere, with President Vicente Fox. Anyway, so I started to get death threats from criminal drug cartels, and some were quite serious, and they actually sent a couple hitmen around just to drive the point home. So anyway, that's a whole other story, but that article, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
So, were you there when there was a case in Kelso where someone had been busted for growing like 840 plants, and it was handled through Normal in Seattle through a lawyer there. So I'm thinking, I think his name was Larson, maybe. It started with an L, I think, but I could be wrong. And he handled the case and put a $50,000 lien on the house. And it was a groundbreaking decision because they split up the sentence between the husband and the wife since they had teenage kids. Are you familiar with this one?
No.
Well, she was considered an accomplice, and he was. But so what they did was they sent her to prison first for 1.5 years, and then when she got back, they sent him for 2.5 years. Well, we ran into the house at just the Sunday before it was going into foreclosure. We, through a skip search, found him. He was home, she was in prison, and we ended up buying the house. And so that's, and we bought the $50,000 lien from the lawyer at Normal for $3,000, and we bought the other deed for $1,000, and then we paid up the arrearages, and then we each made $100,000 on that. We had an investor. But my point is, when it came to finding that lawyer, we did not have his address. We just had we had the address and the name, no phone number. Well, it turned out that address was the building that Normal was in, and his name was not on the marquee. It was like a needle in a haystack. And so when my husband saw that Normal was in that building, he said, you know what, maybe he's a lawyer at Normal. And he called and asked for him, and that's how we found him. And we only had a few hours before we had to come up with the money. It was a miracle.
Wow. So all of this, ironically, can get us back to the main topic we were talking about earlier, which is, this network of networks of groups and conversations. So there's a matter of massive inefficiency and therefore friction in the process of humanity coming together, which I believe can be overcome in a way that I'll describe in a minute. But first, let me talk about what the inefficiency and friction consists of. What it consists of is that of these millions of conversations that are happening all over the Zoomosphere and other media, in order to really tap into any one of those conversations, you kind of have to be there, right? You kind of have to show up like all of us have showed up, and you have to spend some time listening and kind of getting up to speed, right? And a lot of that time, you may be listening to something that's interesting to other people, but not necessarily very interesting to you yourself. You might get some fringe benefit from listening in to the conversation, but it may not map very closely to what your particular mission is or what you're committed to, right? So, but again, you kind of have to spend the time to even get whatever nuggets, large or small, you're going to get out of it. Now, contrast that to the following scenario, which for me represents a form of solution to this dilemma, right? Because most of us do not have infinite time to spend listening in on a bunch of different conversations, and most of us are not like Rain Man, who could have, I don't know, 1,000 different computer monitors going at once and be monitoring thousands of different conversations at once. And that solution consists of the application of the following technologies: transcription of what is being said in each conversation, which is something we now have available to us. In fact, I could even turn it on right now, I guess. Why not, if we wanted to?
Hey, it misses words.
I think it misses. Oh, yeah. Okay. So
Wrong
it's
words in for you say some word and it comes up with a whole different word. It might sound like the one you never mind.
Shall we turn it on for fun?
It's up to you. You can do that.
All right, I'll go ahead and turn it on. I mean, we're recording it.
I've had it on since I joined.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
there you go.
Okay,
I
good.
use
And
it
are
as
you
a
the
matter of
Joseph
fact,
that,
and even
that-
though I'd like to point out, even though if you're talking very fast or if someone else talks over you, there are gaps in it.
Yeah.
But I've, conducted over 1,700 Zoom calls, and we transcribe it because we're writing a book, and it works really very well as a draft in some cases. So really like it. I'm going to have to leave pretty soon because I do a noon up here in Anchorage. And what I am looking for are people who will join me on Saturdays. We discuss the concept of reparation for an hour or two. And it's a very interesting new group study. So before I leave, I'll put something in chat, if I may, as
Yes,
far
you
as the
may.
link. And it's 10 o'clock Saturday morning in Anchorage,
Mhm.
where right now it's 11:33. So wherever you are.
Yeah.
Thanks for letting me break in with that. But this is the kind of discussion I think you're talking about. And I'm having it on every Saturday on a pretty interesting topic, not for any group or individuals reparations, but dissecting the concept reparation and all the questions that it poses in a process. Thank you for that. I'll put something in the link and shut up.
Okay, and Shannon MacArthur has mentioned you to me. Is that right? Did you meet Shannon and
Yeah, in fact, I
decide
think yeah. Shannon and Joseph had a good chat over in the block party.
Yes.
A week ago.
And I wrote to you and you wrote back and we didn't do anything else about it, but things take time. All right, your
mute there.
Excuse me,
mic's off.
Stanley,
Yeah, go
are you
ahead.
saying I didn't answer an email?
No. I'm saying we did both answer each other, but we didn't make a decision about anything.
Okay. We'll fix it. We still have time. I'll
Yes.
put something in chat for the link for tomorrow morning. Thank you.
All right, very good. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to go to Catherine's event. We'll see if I stay there all day.
Oh, so that's an all-day event tomorrow? The one that's
Well, no, it's got certain times on it. I think it's a 2-hour event. And for me, it's, I forget, I have the times written down someplace. Yes. And I put that, it's been in the chat here before. But I'm pretty much committed to going to that, and I don't remember what time it starts. Probably earlier than yours.
yeah, no,
Yours-
hers starts at 8 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow, Saturday.
Okay. Oh, okay. And yours starts at 10.
Well, no,
No,
you're
no,
talking
no, no,
Joseph-
no, no,
Joseph's,
no.
yeah.
Joseph's. Okay. Well, then maybe I can get to both of them.
Well, Joseph starts at 10 a.m. Alaska time, which is a couple hours earlier than Pacific. So his starts at noon Pacific time.
Okay. And that's 3 o'clock for me.
Alaska's 1 hour behind.
Oh, 1 hour. I'm sorry.
Pacific.
Okay, no,
Now, we cheat Mother Nature in the summertime by 2 hours. Normally, our regular noon is 1 o'clock. We push everything for business with the Pacific. It's not nice to fool Mother Nature.
okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for
Okay.
that, Joseph. So, but anyway, so I was talking about how we overcome this inefficiency,
Yes.
kind of having to be there in a conversation to really grok what's going on there.
Yeah.
And so, so there's a combination of technologies that I'm proposing that could be used to overcome these massive inefficiencies and turn them into massive efficiencies. So one is transcription. So now imagine you take the transcripts of all these different conversations that are happening in parallel, the millions of different conversations, and using AI, you basically can pose very personalized questions to the AI. So the AI is digesting all of these conversations, their transcripts, et cetera, and ideally also digesting the people in those conversations and creating some sort of a map. In other words,
Matchmaking. I call it matchmaking.
Matchmaking, right? And so any of us could then talk with the AI and say, look, here's what I'm interested in. Or, you know what, AI, I didn't even need to tell you that since you've been listening to me, you know what I'm interested in, right? So would you kindly connect me with those, couple dozen of the conversations amongst the millions that I would be most interested in? That's step number one. Step number two is, when you walk into a Zoom meeting for the first time, even though it may be in a topic space that you're very interested in general, you don't know the other people who are there. You don't know what they know. You don't know what they've been talking about over the course of the last several months or years. And so you can say, hey, AI, could you do me a favor and just kind of give me a synthesis of what this whole conversation, this ongoing conversation has been talking about over the last several months or years. They give you the synthesis. Okay, great. Now, could you tell me maybe a half minute each about each of the people, the main people in this conversation, so I can get a little familiar? Yep, here you go. Right. So all of these syntheses, I call an on-ramp, a very efficient on-ramp into the conversation. So you can go from 0 to 60 and get up to speed, whatever the speed of that conversation is. And likewise, as you're entering that conversation, they might be able to get up to speed on you. So when I started talking here, a bit ago, some folks were kind enough to put some links in the chat about Jamin Shively, articles that had been written about me, et cetera. And so it's a two-way street. It's a two-way, kind of, I'll call it playing footsie, but very efficient footsie. And again, just to recap, there's really two stages to it. One is finding those conversations that you really want to be in. And number two, getting up to speed on those conversations, and those conversations getting up to speed on you. Who is this Jamin Shively guy who just popped in the room? And so with that, see, now just those technologies alone and these processes that we're talking about, they bring us together. They bring people in deep, rich, efficient contact and onboarding into exactly those conversations that those people want to be in. How cool is that? And because without those technologies, number one, it's searching for a needle in a haystack of millions of pieces of hay. And number two, even if you find the piece of hay that has the needle embedded in it, there's this, inefficient onboarding process to really get on board with that needle. Anyway, so it's inefficiency on top of inefficiency. And the fact that we do not have these solutions yet built, we've got the technology for it. Because the solutions have not yet been built, we're only talking about this in the theoretical. And in the meantime, what do we have? We have we have millions of Zoom rooms, millions of groups, which are essentially playing it safe by sticking with what they know and with who they know, because, we are very social creatures and we love to co-create, and it's so much fun and fulfilling and efficient in and of itself. But we're only doing this in a very isolated, fragmented form, speaking of the body of the millions of Zoom meetings that are happening all over the world. Basically, they don't know about each other, and they don't have an efficient means of knowing about each other. But we do have the technology. So anyway, I'm going to pass the feather because I don't like to talk too much at a stretch. But anyway, all that I said addresses the how we might get together. But I still haven't addressed the why. Why would we want to get together? What is the mission? Or are there, thousands of disparate missions, which are, at odds with each other, to some degree overlapping, to some degree consistent with each other, to other degrees inconsistent with each other. So, why are we going to get together? And that's something I'd love to have a deeper conversation about right now. But first, I'm going to pass the feather, as I promised, because I don't like to be hogging the microphone too much.
Okay. So my first thought is we're here because we're here. And that's why. Yeah. And you can boil it down further and say it's curiosity that drives the universe. And curiosity is a form of love. So it's love that drives the universe. And once we've managed to figure out how to not hate each other, which this process you're talking about of using AI to get to understand other people in other places, it could be, the AI could be doing translations too. So it doesn't have to be that the various conversations are all done in any particular language. They can be in any language around the world, and have the AIs interpret and bring you up to speed on what somebody in Africa or South America is talking about, and how it relates to what you're thinking about, even though they're using different languages. So that's a great thing. Yeah, that solves a problem of moving the people closer together from different points of view, and handling thousands of conversations all at once, and which is needed in order to generate in kind of group think. Co-creation is a process of having people's ideas build on each other. One of my favorite, where's Shaman? Is you still hearing us, or you can't turn on your microphone from wherever you are? one of the key factors is that people around the world don't have access to resources in any kind of even sort of way. And that's a big block and a big cause for discord in the world. And you want my land, I want your whatever you got, and we're going to fight over it. So that has to be dealt with. And one of the simplest ways to deal with that for a lot of people is to make sure that everybody has whatever they need to be able to live. And that the society should supply sufficient, whatever it is, money or dog food or whatever it needs to be, that people can feel that they're part of society, and that they can just sit still and not have to worry about not having a house and not having a meal. So some people call that universal basic income. You can call it whatever you want, but it's just to make sure that the society provides in each country or in each area of the world, the society provides for people, and we don't have this every single person has to work. And I like to think of it as you don't make your babies go to work usually. I mean, you have a baby and it's 2 years old, and they're going to get fed no matter whether or not they have a job. So let's treat everybody like our family. Everybody is a family, as part of the family, and everybody deserves to have whatever they need to keep up. And Buckminster Fuller calls it a fellowship for thinking. In the operating manual for Spaceship Earth, he said everybody should have a fellowship for thinking, and research and development, he calls it. Yes, he says specifically everybody should have a fellowship for research and development, and they can be productive if they want or not. And he describes the possibility that for 10,000 people not being that awful productive, one person out of that could build up an idea, so come up with something useful that takes care of all those 10,000 people. So we don't really need to have everybody producing. We can share. And so once we've solved that problem, then there'll be a lot less people killing each other. Yeah.
People is a plural, there'd be fewer, not less. I just asked AI to write a draft legislation for homelessness.
Okay, good.
If you like the results, I'll put it in chat. I just asked AI, I said, write a brief legislative draft of a bill that would address homelessness, and it took it about 5 seconds.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I just thought you'd be interested in the technology. I'll put it in
yeah. I've been
Are
using
you
that.
gonna read it, Joseph?
Oh my God, if I read it to you, you hear enough Joseph's voice. I'll put it in chat and you let your
I want to
computer-
hear it.
How long is it?
okay.
How long is it?
It's a bill. I even said in my question, write a legislative draft of a
Okay.
bill that would address homelessness, and then I inserted, write a brief legislative draft. So
All right,
this is
good.
what it says here.
Mhm.
All right, I'll do this quickly. Let me get it up,
Okay.
and here we go. Here is a brief legislative draft that would address homelessness. Homelessness Reduction Act of insert year. Short title, the act may be cited as Homelessness Reduction Act of insert year. Findings, section 2. Congress finds that homelessness is a national crisis affecting millions of Americans. B, homelessness is a significant adverse effect on individuals and families and communities, including negative impact on physical and mental health, economic productivity, and public safety. C, there is a need for comprehensive and coordinated strategies to prevent reduction. I'll jump to some stuff that gets more meaty. D, federal, state, and local governments have a responsibility. Section 3, homelessness reduction plan. The Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, in consultation with relevant federal agencies and local governments and stakeholders, shall develop a homeless reduction plan to prevent and to reduce across the United States, increase access to affordable supportive housing. Number 2, expand health care, social services, address root causes. 4, strengthen the capacity of service providers, including nonprofit organizations and community-based organizations, to provide effective and efficient services to homeless individuals and families. Sounds like it was written by a person. Improve
Well, that's
data
what they do.
collection.
That's what IAI is for. Yeah, it's what it's for. It's designed to be sounding like a person.
Oh, I'm not, believe me. Many of you don't know, I've been working with computers a good portion of my life,
Okay.
since 1959.
Okay.
So I'm just, the Turing, it passes the Turing test for sure. Section 4, funding. It's authorized to appropriate. The Secretary of Housing can allocate funds. Section C, Housing Secretary can ensure that the funds are distributed correctly. Jesus, it got to everything. Then Section 5 is reporting. Section 6 is about a sunset terminating after 5 years. Section 7 is definitions, and it comes to an end. Thank you.
Okay, that's good.
I'll put it in chat.
All right. Yeah, that's a fine thing. What it didn't say is how much taxes are having to be raised, and so, but that's an important piece too. And
That was in the first section, the group that would make those determinations. Yeah,
determinations. Okay. Yeah, I didn't hear numbers. Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah, I asked it to tell me about the thing that I talk about a lot, which is the coming of the age of helpfulness. And it gave me 4 lovely paragraphs on the age of helpfulness, and it approved. That's what I love about this piece of software. It approves of my ideas. It tells me how bright I am.
I'm looking for a blow-up computer.
Okay.
I'm in love.
Yes, right.
What was I gonna say? I just lost it. About AI. I just took a course on AI, and it actually taught how to go to otter.ai and talk into it, because Otter transcribes what you're saying. So then it has your speaking style, which is different than your writing style. So then it learns your speech and your speaking style, and then you put it in a prompt and give it a direction, I don't know. And then it will actually write in your speaking style, the way you talk.
And it will have a record of the tonal quality of your particular voice, so that a guy like me can hack in and make your voice say anything I want to. On an animated photo of your face, which makes expressions that you never made, saying words that you never said, and nobody but me will know it's fake news.
And that,
well, lots of people will find it, figure that out. Everything will be fake.
Yeah,
except
that's
orgasm.
when Star Trek had the little microwave oven that would give them a cup of tea or whatever they wanted.
Yeah,
I thought, gee, as soon as they make one of those, gold will be worthless.
yes, of course. Well, gold is worthless anyway. You can't eat it. What can you do with it? You can't do much of anything. Maybe you pound it into some bright, shiny objects. Well, okay.
No. It has myriad industrial uses. It's a fabulous conductor.
Yeah. Okay.
So in electronics.
What I'm saying is that when you have a reproducer that can reproduce
of course,
then what is anything anymore?
There's no intrinsic value in anything.
And now, like my father said, the most dangerous thing that he can imagine is when you get professional equipment into the hands of amateurs. And this includes nuclear weapons.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Yes.
From paintbrushes to plutonium in one sentence.
Okay. Yes.
And Joseph, where are you located?
He's in Alaska.
Mostly between my ears, Anchorage, Alaska, at Arctic and Diamond on what I call the south shore of Taku Lake,
Wow.
which is a small swamp.
And I just
It's
call
where
it
I get
cold.
my samples from my microscope. I do some high-powered microscopic. I'm interested in how single cell creatures can think.
Okay.
Wow, I would like to hear more about that. And were you there over 30 years ago, 32 years ago, 33 years ago now for the Exxon oil spill?
Yes, I flew over it on the third day with attorneys that were going to the meeting. So I was
And
there
did you
at
go
the
to the
meeting
auction?
on the third day. Say?
Did you go to the auction a year or 18 months later, where they were auctioning off everything that they had brought there, Exxon had brought there to clean up the spill, when all they had to do was light a match? And it was 4 days, 2 different locations. People came from all over trying to buy back some of the stuff that they sold them 10 cents on the dollar. And they waited till after fishing season. And I actually flew up there with some carte blanches for some people to buy stuff. And it went so high, I didn't buy anything but a pair of boots off of somebody else's pallet. And that was it. It was a crazy, crazy sale.
Yeah, I'll answer your question. Yeah, I was, because I came here in '64, about 3 months after the quake, with a broom and a shovel and an idea that I might stay here one year. And Alaska has been extremely generous to me. And so I've had residence here since that time. And then I had 14 years of a second residence in Las Vegas. And at that time, I also had a house on Maui. Things were doing pretty well. And then I moved Vegas to San Diego, and then closed the house up some years ago, and just in Anchorage, Alaska right now. In my
Do you still have
83rd
a
year.
house in San Diego?
No. San Diego was getting to be a very difficult place for me to live. The tensions, watching how people treated each other and such. It's a microcosm of some of the difficulties that are throughout America now. And it was coming on early. So, and the attorney, one of the attorneys I've worked with most of my career he had residence here in Alaska and had an apartment in San Diego. When I moved from Vegas, I was 2 blocks from him, because I did a lot of cases in California. I'm an expert in some elements of trial preparation, evidence presentation, jury selection. I'm known as Alaska's jury guru. I'm qualified to teach attorneys the emotional side, not the legal. I love to say I work with attorneys, and they do everything that's legal in the courtroom, and I get to do everything else. So I do the human stuff of jury selection, signature analysis, how to ask questions, how to incorporate the answers that the jury gives you during the selection process when you write your opening statement. By golly, your opening statement incorporates the words that juror number 4 used when you asked that open-ended question. And the lawyers don't like to ask open-ended questions, but the lawyers that I work with have the confidence. And then we incorporate the jury into the statement. And then I produce the timelines, and I do physical sculpture in wax for medical malpractice cases. I've done, anyway, shut up, Joe. Pat, God, I'm choking everybody.
That candle behind you, is that one of your sculptures?
This is just one of my backgrounds. I've got 320, I think, Zoom backgrounds currently at the current. I'm obsessive compulsive. I live alone. Nobody, I don't burden any woman with living with me. I wash my own socks, my gosh. But I'm interested in a lot of things. Got my ham radio. I've got 3 microscopes over here. I've got drones. I've got one easel where I paint in acrylics, and farther back in the room is the easel I use for oils. I'm not doing some of the close sculpture work that I did years ago. This is in gold, a little runner on a piece of Alaskan jade,
that's
and
lovely.
she's
Oh, wow.
Wow.
fairly accurate, and you can see that the piece is rather tiny.
Yeah.
My left eye no longer allows me to do this work. But in the past, I've done, this is an eagle on a piece of Alaskan jade. And the eagle comes off and is designed to lay in your hand. And that's the title of the sculpture, "A Bird in the Hand."
Wow.
Oh,
I
that's
just
wonderful.
got a knock. They deliver me some lunch
All
from the
right.
senior center.
Yeah, okay, you want to take advantage of your brain one of these days. Oh, well,
I love it.
I have this
Well-
friend who writes these amazing articles, but I can't read them. And I need somebody like Joseph to help me interpret it. What the hell is this guy talking about?
What's the subject matter?
Oh, he's all over the place. This is the founding editor of the Encyclopedia of World Problems and Human Potential.
Oh, wow.
And he knows everything about everything, and he writes about it. He has
Well, you
like
know what?
some 30,000
Go ahead.
articles on his website.
Well, what I was going to talk about not just the homelessness, but solution.
Mhm,
One of the solutions to me, to get the world back on track, is to go back to the extended family
mhm.
and not the nuclear family, because when they broke up the family unit and went to a nuclear family,
Yeah.
it broke up society. You know,
Mhm.
it was really one of the keys.
Hmm.
And we need to go and you know, the grandmother was the ruling force.
Mhm.
And we've kind of lost that, and each generation has gotten less and less respectful, and you know, and then the families took care of their mentally ill and whatever. You know, we wouldn't have as many people
Mhm.
on the streets. So I mean, if we were to go look at the core, that would be one thing I would like to see happen, is go back to the extended family unit.
Mhm. Well, that's sort of what Shannon's talking about, and she's not really talking about it being residential. Our heart gardens, and I think it ought to be. You should have those communities ought to be a combination of non and residential. So some of the people live together, and some people are just come and hang out. And so an extended, it's like a tribe, and we need more tribal groups that take care of themselves. And that's what Shannon's talking about, I think.
Yeah, I like the tribal, that I would say, to take it back, to go to tribalism,
Mhm,
which would be groupism
mhm,
versus individualism.
mhm. Yeah.
Because when you're working for the whole and you're working for the group, that is tribalism. And when you're
Mhm.
working for the individual, we are now a society where not even two people can get along.
Right. Yeah. Well, one of the things I wanted to try to get Philadelphia to deal with is to legalize shared housing. Right now, they would try to tax the fact that I have two people living in my house. They would try to tax me for that income, and it's silly because they're just covering the cost of their being here. So I need to send my I have a compiled bunch of literature on shared housing, and I need to send it to the politicians and let them think about it. I mean, somebody that shares their home should not have to be accused of being in business. So I shouldn't have to have a business license just to have somebody come live in my house.
If a person took a long vacation and chipped in, how would they know the difference?
Oh, they don't have to. I mean, it's if my
How
house is my
ridiculous.
house.
No, yeah, it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Unless you're moving out of your house and then turning it into rental income or something. But if
Right.
Someone comes to live with you, it's like a vacation, and so they
Exactly.
bought some of the food in the
Yep,
fridge.
Yep.
I almost said icebox and gave away my age.
Okay. So Joseph, I have a friend who writes stuff that's so outside of my level of experience. And I would wonder if you would be interested in seeing an article from him and help me understand it. I think you could do that.
Well, your presumption.
My presumption is
not,
could be totally wrong, but
I'd
you're the
love.
first.
I'm always. Please send me anything.
Okay.
I'm a lonely man living alone in Alaska on the south shore of a swamp.
This guy is the founding editor of the Encyclopedia of World Problems and Human Potential, and he's retired now. And but he continues to have brilliant ideas, and he writes them down. And he's started to send me some of his latest ideas, some of his latest articles, and I have a lot of trouble reading them because I just don't have the background. What the hell is he what is he talking about? I can look up the individual words, but why is he doing this? What is the rationale behind what he's trying to say? What is he trying to say? And it would be fun if you can figure that out with me.
Well, sure. Because there's actually methods that sound very good and actually confuse. Sometimes you subscribe to them in a negotiation where you want to mess up the other person. I mean, there's a method of speaking, and you go into a point where the other person doesn't really understand what you said.
Right.
And then directly after that, you present to them the opportunity to agree to the original premise of the discussion, of the negotiation. And they are more vulnerable to agree because they have experienced in the few moments before that words from you that sound conform with them down with the painting. And they would summon, they'd come up. Those individuals are the ones.
Yeah, I got on candid camera for just exactly that.
I did it to you with those words. Yeah,
right.
Crazy words.
You ever hear
but I
of,
had alerted your mind that I was going to do it, so you'll
Al Kelly was a double talk artist, and I had a traffic ticket, a parking ticket, and I went to pay it, and they invited me into a courtroom with Al Kelly, and he was asking me questions. And I was saying, well, I told him I had a test and I was late for the class, and I had to go and park, and then and if I don't pay this right now, my father's going to kill me, and and they used it on candid camera.
James has got his hand up, you notice.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't. I was looking at you and your candle. Jamin, do you want to talk to us?
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you calling on me?
Well, your hand is up. So Joseph just noticed.
I was just listening to a message real quick.
Oh.
So, well, first of all, I just wanted to make a brief comment on what Carol Sue mentioned about the extended family. I think it's absolutely spot on. I used to spend summers and winters in Mexico when I was in high school doing volunteer projects in rural villages where it's all about the extended family. And yes, the grandmother is the matriarch, the ultimate matriarch, because she knows everything and everyone that is relevant to harmonious life in the village. And I experienced such a deep sense of peace and happiness there in the Mexican villages, plural, because I did volunteer work in a number of villages, but then I ultimately kind of settled in one that became my sort of home base. And then I became godfather to two young boys there and became part of the extended family. And I mean, my goodness, the extent to which it works cannot be overstated. You have to live it. You have to experience it. And so, here we are in the modern world where in the United States, that's been just decimated per Carol Sue's excellent comments. And so how do we turn this machine of human destruction in reverse and undo the destruction that we've done. That is one of the benevolent objectives, I would say, of the Human Project in 2023 that we should be focused on. There are a number of benevolent objectives that constitute what I would call saving, healing, and transforming life on Earth. Right, that's one of them. Another is, how do we cool the planet? How do we stop the destruction of the biosphere, et cetera, et cetera? It turns out a lot of these can be solved, simultaneously and holistically. One of the solutions, or one of the vectors for simultaneous and holistic solution of many of these problems in parallel, is feeding everyone plant-based foods for free, making these foods freely available. We've done that in the context of Food Healers. It's a program that we're doing in Los Angeles and Arizona, other parts of the world. We're kind of like this network of food healers. And what we do is we make large quantities of plant-based stew that's actually very high quality, nutritious, delicious, really optimized. And then we also have agua fresca with ice, and we have music, and people come and they dance, and it just becomes a big party. And so what we're essentially doing is we're creating this sort of mini pop-up tribe on the beach in Santa Monica, actually on a grassy area right next to the beach. And people love it, and we feed 1,000 people a day. We only do this about once a month currently, because it's a big effort just to get the whole thing organized. But our dream, our vision, is that we make this a very popular thing that just then spreads and everyone gets into it. It is infinitely more efficient to produce a whole bunch of plant-based stew and feed it to everyone than to expect everyone to get in their car and drive to the grocery store and get a bunch of stuff that's been double wrapped in plastic and then put it in another plastic bag and then put it back in your car and then drive it back to your manufactured universe in your McMansion, where you have refrigeration and stoves and garbage and all kinds of crap. And it's just infinitely more efficient to just make the stew, no single-use plastic necessary, feed everyone, wash the dishes, wash, rinse, repeat, and make food a basic human right. We talk about the problems of homelessness and all this. One of the problems is malnutrition, right? Food deserts. And then you combine that with drug addiction, and they take whatever resources they have and they first and foremost buy the drugs, and food is an afterthought. And so you get these downward spirals of people destroying themselves. So there's a very simple solution to solving the food problem, but what we're focused on is not just solving the food problem, but actually creating, through these events, these food healer events, you could think of it sort of like a seed crystal for Homo ahimsa, us evolving, making this evolutionary leap to a new species, right? The analogy I use is, imagine a bunch of ants in the forest, each competing with each other. Every ant is an enemy of every other ant, and they're all competing, versus forming an ant colony, which is a massively more efficient system than a bunch of individual ants competing with each other. So what if we formed a human colony? Well, I call that Homo ahimsa. And so the Food Healers events are like a seed crystal. Raise your hand if you've read the book Ice 9 by Kurt Vonnegut. Okay, anyway, there's an example of a seed, of a seed crystal that then just propagates all over the world. And for me, this is an example of that. This seed crystal of humanity, people coming together, preparing food together, serving up food to everyone else. It becomes an attractor. They're attracted first to the agua fresca because they're thirsty, jogging down the beach or whatever. and then they say, oh, then they smell the stew and they see the stew and they say, wait a second, that looks good. Let me try that too. People are singing, dancing, having conversations. There are booths there for like the plant-based treaty and other cool stuff that's going on. People can learn about Our Heart Gardens. And it's really interesting. And I'm grateful that you mentioned the grandmother at the core of the tribe, because funnily enough, in the process of creating these food healers events led by vegans, the shadow side of veganism has reared its ugly head. And the shadow side of veganism is, hey, I'm vegan, therefore I get to abuse you, right? And so this sort of abuse has crept in the form of frustrated vegans who are hardworking and frustrated and angry, and yes, they're going to take it out on you. And you might be another volunteer.
Yeah,
Anyway,
they don't like my hamburger.
Well,
Yeah.
and I did notice it excluded raccoons.
It excludes raccoons. It's not a dead raccoon friendly event, and we need equal rights for people who eat dead raccoons. So anyway, so I've actually identified through my that the missing ingredient is actually the vegan grandmothers. We need the grandmothers there to really put this whole thing in order. A vegan activist friend of mine in Los Angeles, seeing what was going on at our events, said, I'm not going to name any names, but Jamin, this person really has managed to take the fun out of a fun event. And so it's just one of those tragedies. It's like, oh my God, really? We have to, if we could just get the meanness out of there, it would really be amazing. So we're in the process of reconfiguring. I'm actually going to give a talk on this subject, food healers and Homo ahimsa being precisely that new species that we're making the evolutionary leap to become. The subtext is who we really are and how we're going to save the world. Anyway, it's a very vegan book. Veganism is indeed one of the answers that we're looking for, which solves myriad problems simultaneously and holistically. There's two major components to the destruction to the destruction of life on Earth. One of them is planetary overheating, which we all know a lot about the causes of, but actually I'd be surprised if there was even more than two people in this room who know what the actual solution to global warming is. The other is animal agriculture. That we can solve with veganism, and the best way to promote veganism is food healers, and creating this seed crystal of what life on Earth can be like, and then facilitating its propagation to myriad food healers, events, pop-ups, ongoing operations throughout the world. That will bring humanity together like nothing else, because there's no better way to bring people together than food. Feed a community, right? There are myriad parts of the world where this is just a standard practice. Everyone gets it. It's absolutely amazing. Why aren't we doing this everywhere? So anyway, I just wanted to mention that about food and about the grandmothers. I mean, if we can do it with food, we can do it with shelter. And if we can do it for food and shelter and healthcare, guess what? You suddenly have a platform where, I think it was Stan who was mentioning the Buckminster Fuller stuff. You now have a fellowship for thinking, right? If you've got your basic needs met, then you can think, you can engage in conversation, you can be happy in community. Suddenly the other human beings around you are not your enemies, but your co-creators of this amazing, life as caretaker species that we can all enjoy. And so anyway, with that, I'm going to pass the feather. I could say a lot more about that, but go ahead, Carol Sue. Yes.
Can I have the feather for a sec? So are you familiar with OAHSPE? OAHSPE? It is a book that was channeled through a man in 1881, and it's the history of the universe without the Jesus slant. 72,000 years of history past and into the future. And it really says that we need to become vegans. So it's a whole vegan society in different places in the world that are part of this. It's called Universal Faiths of Cosmin. And I've been involved with it since 1979. And it actually says in the book, and I think a lot of people don't even take a look at that part anymore, but I heard one sentence just recently, because the man was made to become a vegan for 10 years before then he was made to sit down and type at a typewriter for a year. Well, in it says that, we're not supposed to eat flesh, but also it says the food in the future will not be safe. And if you take a look at what's happening with all of the food, that the meat sources right now are not safe, not even some of the vegetables. They're now talking about putting the vaccine into the vegetables. I mean, what they're doing, and they're trying to concentrate all the food source down to one food source. They're blowing up. Now, here's the funny thing. The things that they're blowing up and destroying are the bad food anyway. They just burned 18,000 cows. They just, blew up all these different food processing plants. Well, notice their food processing plants, foods we probably don't care about anyway. So in a way, it's a little counterproductive to what I think that their objective is, because if they get rid of the bad foods, and then will have no choice but to grow our own. That's on one level. On the mental health issue, of course, all this mental health stuff is designed to keep people mentally ill, so they can keep on their designer drugs and keep them on the street, so that then they can. I mean, this whole thing is part of a huge design. But there is one product called True Hope, and if we could get these to the homeless people that are mentally ill, I think it would help them a lot, because all it is vitamins, minerals, and amino acids that feed the neurotransmitters in a balance that feeds the neurotransmitters, and it reverses a lot of mental illness. I mean, a lot. Schizophrenia, bipolar, anxiety, depression. Even someone wrote a book how it cured their cancer, because once you heal at the neurotransmitter level, the body will work its way up and heal. So that's truehope.com. Let me see, I could put that in here. So that's another solution. And then the third one is, I'm actually part of a group working on a solution for the homeless called Beyond Living, where we're setting up houses. I'm not doing it personally. I already have enough of these people living in one of my houses, but where people can, especially the homeless, veterans, women that are taken, women and men taken out of the human trafficking, and give them a place to live, and also teach them skills, give them jobs, so that they can eventually move out of the shared housing. But it is a shared housing type organization. And this guy teaches people how to buy the houses for investors, so that it can create more of them all over the country. And it's a cool concept. I don't know how it's going to work in reality, but it's a nice concept. A lot of mentally ill don't want, because the part of the illness is that they don't want to get better, or that's just part of the illness.
Well, they've given up on life to a large degree, and the number one cause of death in the United States is fentanyl overdosing. These are people checking out, whether consciously or subconsciously. They're checking out of life, and so I think solving the food problem is both the easiest and the most impactful. It's the low-hanging fruit. It's the biggest bang for the buck. And then once,
I like
once we, huh?
I like it.
Yeah, and once we've solved that, then as a species, we will have gained the self-confidence that we can solve wicked mega problems. And it'll be like, all right, what's next? Well, shelter, healthcare.
Well,
The
and I just had a brainstorm because I just saw a great video on a doctor talking about what's the one thing that how we can win is in numbers. And the way we can get our numbers up is what she calls her freedom mouse. You take your mouse and you use it to get to Congress and, everybody, you send them emails about, and when they see that we are big in numbers because we're coming out on the internet, that they will back down. And she cited several incidences where we can make a difference in numbers. That's why they want to reduce us, the population by half, right? That's their goal, is to reduce the population. But what if we come out in numbers and do it through the internet? And it might be a way for us to win the war. Someone has their hand.
Yeah, yeah, Joseph has his hand up, but I'll just give you a quick response, if I may, Joseph. Is so the way to solve the numbers problem is, number one, take care of the numbers, take care of the people. Right now, we are so.
That was my point. If we take care of them, that was my point. Take care of them, get them, rehabilitated, place to live, food, everything. Then we have our numbers.
Then we have our numbers of
that was my whole point.
Of healthy, happy people who can then engage in what Stan was talking about, engage in the thinking, engage in conversation. And it's through conversation that we engage in this collective intelligence. And then we co-create the greatest planetary intelligence imaginable, because there's only one thing smarter than AI. And that is the collective intelligence of humanity utilizing AI in these hyper-productive ways. And so, collective intelligence plus AI will always be greater than AI, period.
Well, and I just had another thought about AI, because one of the big fears that Elon Musk has is that AI will be intelligent upon itself, kind of like HAL in 2001, where it will take over. But in truth, the way you just described it is that how we can use it for the benefit of mankind.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
I think
does Joseph want to say something? I mean,
he
Yeah,
does.
he does.
Go ahead, Joseph.
He does.
Oh, he always wants to say something, for God's sake. Didn't you people get the idea?
okay.
Numbers. I wrote down a couple of things here, because you were talking about, first of all, then we'll be numbers. And I was thinking of then we'll be happy and we'll be healthy. And that's the problem with India. That's the problem. What is the problem? The problem is their population is healthier than it's been. They're not dying like they used to. And boy, is their population growing. Chinese have a problem with their numbers because of the fluctuation from the one child and all of that. But worse than that, I've heard, stand by, it's a joke. Worse than that, he said, I've heard that 1 out of every 5 children born in the world is Chinese. And my wife and I are worried because we've already had 4 children. What happens if, okay, anyway. Now population. Now I have not been vaccinated. I don't want to shift this conversation if it does not want to be shifted by any person who's listening. But I, as some of you know, was requested in the early months of 2020 to produce a PowerPoint for a nurse who was going here through Alaska on the vaccine that's coming and how it's done and how it's made and what it's doing and all the stuff. And that's why I decided, since I'm alone in this studio and can have my food delivered, I would neither get the vaccine nor would I expose myself to a very dangerous virus. Since then, I have learned things because I have been really examining. And if you have or have not connected with Dr. Campbell and his position, he was on for years doing medical information stuff. His books are PDF free, big books, PDF free. So Dr. Campbell is one of my sources. Now we know the Swiss have disconnected the vaccine totally. We know the British have said, only now if you're over 65. Of course, in the US, we're still sticking it into 6-month-old kids. But the problems that are arising now, and the Pfizer papers that finally were FOIA'd out from a 75-year block. Don't give these papers to the public for 75 years, the judge said, hell. And they are beginning to come out, thousands of pages. And Pfizer knew what we're now learning. It goes to the uterus. It messes up the menstrual cycle, which they're not sure is because it's in the uterus or it's in the brain. And what is it? It's the protein from the vaccine, not the sickness. If the virus causes your cells to make the protein spike, it additionally makes a trace element that, when now allowed autopsies, Fauci said no autopsies, no checking, Now in the autopsies, they find the spike protein is present in the brain, in the adrenal glands, in the testes, in the uterus, and it goes everywhere throughout the body. It was supposed to be right here. It was supposed to be right here, and that's it. Even though the virus is not in, the virus is in the mucosa. That's why you have a specialized doctor's eye, ear, nose, and throat. It's because in that area, there's a totally different immune system. Pfizer knew it. They never told people about that. They never told people about the menstrual cycle disruptions. Now in Australia, it was a medicine called DES. And they didn't know the problem until the mothers who took it gave birth to daughters who suffered from what it did, the DES. It's, look it up on Google. All I'm saying is anyone who's been vaccinated can ask their health provider to see if there's extra proteins still in their system. That's all. Because,
What proteins?
say?
What proteins? How do you ask for extra? What is extra?
No, it's not protein from meat. These are proteins that are built inside. You see, these are not vaccines. Pfizer and the mRNA concept is a kind of gene therapy, in that they have created a nanolipid. This is a fat particle that is so tiny that it goes throughout the system. It passes through the brain, passes through the placenta. It is so tiny. Inside of it is a fragment of RNA. And when it's passed through the cell barrier into the cell, it tells the cell to make more. And so the cell starts to produce a spike protein, which is a protein that is on top of the virus carrying unit. The spike is on top of the container for the virus that's going to go in, and all the virus does is reproduce itself. So it goes into other cells and reproduces more, and that's your infection, your viral infection. The vaccine, which is not a vaccine, limits, it doesn't produce the virus. It produces what's on the shell of the virus, the spike that has been split at a certain place that makes it go into humans. And this is the gain of function. This is a whole nother topic. Those spikes are recognized as being an antigen. We don't like that in the body, and the body says, hey, how do we get rid of it? And by figuring out how to get rid of it, it's ready when you catch the virus to get rid of the key on top of the virus that lets it get into your cell. Now, Stanley has gone to sleep, So
No,
I
I
think
haven't.
I'm talking too long.
No, no,
Anybody,
I just have
anybody, hey, this is the signal for Princiota to shut up. Okay, so the spike, then, the idea of the vaccine is, can we get your body to produce no virus, but a few spikes so that your immune system has a heads up? Don't, if these guys come in, are you ready with the right tools to surround this particular protein, to dissolve it, which is what our white cells and some of the T cells do. They have to get through the thymus to be activated. Then they have to know what to go after. It's a terrific theory, unless the production of these bad guys doesn't stop, or unless you happen to get the vaccine into a heart cell, and the heart cell starts producing these spikes, and the body says, heart cell, shut the hell up. And the heart cell doesn't. So the body creates myocarditis and pericarditis. Around the heart, there is a shell of special protective flesh. Inside the surface of the heart, there are special cells that produce the pumping effort of the heart. Two different things. They are both inflamed in these people who have suffered from vaccine injury and who have gone through because the parents said he was 28. Give him an autopsy. Why did he die? The first one came up in Germany recently. They go into the brain and they find that the brain is filled with, and other parts of the body, other organs, an abundance of cells that are producing the spike. And so the body is attacking those cells, and it's like an autoimmune disease. Only happens if it hasn't happened, if you've had the vaccine, but it is that people are at least checking to see if the vaccine is still causing their body to produce these enemies, but they're not feeling sick. Why? Because you're healthy, which means the sickness is being balanced by your immune system. So you don't feel it. You don't feel it because you're not sick. Your immune system is able to take care of it. However, what if something else comes up? And that's the caution. So why people are being advised to go to their healthcare provider and suggest that the vaccine, what's the latest, ask for the latest information, ask for risk benefit analysis. This is what's coming out. If the numbers are just now, you got to be in Europe to get it, because we're still being stifled. Our CDC is still giving out, like I say, shots to 6 months old. But it's important that you know if your immune system is doing a good job, but over time. And you might need some encouragement from your health. I'm not a healthcare provider, though I had an office at the Omni Medical Center for 2.5 years. Again, like the attorney, the doctor does everything medical. I was a kind of bedside relationship between the doctor and the patient, doing body language, talking about how the body is structured and how our thoughts and our body are all connected. And when you have a gut feeling about something, tell me, and all of this kind of stuff is part of my belief. So I'm encouraging you, go to your healthcare provider, ask them to tell you the latest things they know about the vaccine, and don't necessarily get the booster shots until you know, because when does it happen? Most of the side effects, the bad effects, happen on the second or third booster, because you've overpowered the system, because they put 5 units in the goddamn vial. They didn't put 1. You're supposed to shake it up, but don't shake it up too much because you disturb the nano lipid particles. Seriously, read it. And so you shake it up 2 or 3 times as a nurse. I mean, I did the PowerPoint. And then what do you got to do? And you put the needle in and you take out so much volume. Well, wait a minute. Why did I shake it? Or you shook it because if it stood for a while, the important material separates. Okay, so what do? I shake the vial. How much? Well, 5 times, but not too strict in the writing. Then what? Then you stick the needle in and you extract a volume. Well, what's the concentration? If I forgot to turn it at all and just turn it up and stick the needle in, don't I get a whole bunch of stuff from the bottom of the, and how much did you get in your shoulder? And oh, wait a minute, gavage. Do you know how to gavage a syringe? If you don't, you're in trouble. What is that? You stick it in, and the first thing you do is withdraw and draw a vacuum in. Hopefully there's no blood. If any blood comes in, you pull it out, you get rid of the blood, and you, hello, too much?
No, it's fine.
Well,
No, I'm getting a hand from, so I'm
Oh,
getting a
well,
signal. I'm trying to
well,
watch.
well, so this is really interesting. I mean, what you're saying is super valuable. It's also completely diametrical to what we were talking about earlier. And this gets back to the core problem of inefficiency of these kinds of conversations, is what's important to one person is totally different from what's important to another.
That's why I said signal me. Thank you. You're right.
Well, I
Okay.
wanted to thank you, Joseph, because I am very schooled in this and I even learned things from you. And so I really appreciate it. You didn't even mention the fact that the vaccine really includes 19 toxins of snake venom and spider
Snake
bite.
venom, yeah. Well, that preserves the nanoparticle from being hurt by anything. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they don't
Yeah,
know what
no.
dose you got. They don't know. Yeah. Oh,
But I want to thank you because if
this is
this
worse.
is being put out to a platform, it's the part that people don't know. But I will end this in a cure, and I don't know if it also deals with the graphene oxide, or the nanobots, but it may. And that is to drink your first morning pee midstream. And the reason it works is because your urine is the only thing that is your DNA and that does DNA repair. So it actually does DNA repair, because this vaccine, well, and it's not a vaccine, does damage the DNA.
Gene therapy.
So just to
Yeah.
let you know, that was
Yeah.
the keynote speaker at Dr. Buttar's convention, which is coming up again at the end of May this year. And he has the top doctors and scientists in the field against the vaccine masks and 5G and all this technology. So I've heard all the major doctors speak on it several times. And so
I was probably telling you all something you all know, and Jenny
no,
is
not
right.
really. No, there's some of
She's
us
the
here that-
expert. We're just here not understanding what we need to understand. So
right.
it's
But
okay.
I want to thank you, because even I learned things. That was fabulous.
Yeah, and I have some friends that might be able to understand you certainly better than I can.
Are you going to send me an article? Are we?
Oh,
gonna
that's
do it
all.
on
Something
Zoom?
else.
Why
Yes,
don't
I
we
will
do
send you.
Zoom? Why don't
Huh?
we just do a Zoom, you and me? Because
Yeah,
I'm
we can do that,
on
but
my
not right now.
iPad now.
Okay, now I
My
have.
noon meeting is on my iPad, so we wouldn't
Yeah.
interrupt these people if you connect me on. I'll give you a link.
Okay, well, let's. I need to stop and eat something because my stomach is giving me a hard time about this, and I also can't sit here any longer because my legs are going to fall off if I don't exercise. My wife yesterday finally realized that she needs to take me for a walk every day like a dog. She says, I gotta go walk my husband. And I need that. So I will leave this running if anybody wants to stay on this channel, and I'm going to get off and go get some food. And I have all this homework to do. I do a daily report about Humanity Rising every day, and I have to get to work on that.
Yeah, and feel free to make me host, Stan, if that's productive.
Sure. Okay, I can do that. I'm going to leave and I'll make you host.
Yeah.
Joseph,
where's
look
my-
at me.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Leave
also,
meeting. Yeah.
Just to be clear, I'm not here to shut down anyone else's conversations, but what I would propose and request is if you want to start a conversation that's diametrically opposite, or not opposite, but just
Yeah,
but
well,
just-
I'm conversationed out, so I need to just go and
but
just be
Stan, please
quiet.
go. So I'm actually not talking
Okay.
to you right now.
All right, very
You
good.
have a complete kitchen task to
Damon
go,
gets
and
to be
yeah.
host.
So
Send me
And-
an email, Stanley. Send me an email.
Okay, yes, I need to organize. I too many things happening at once, but yes, I would like to send you something to ask you questions about.
Thank you.
And sign
Be a
and
privilege.
leave. Jamin gets to
Thank you so
sign
much,
and
Stanley.
leave.
It was a pleasure to meet you.
Nice to
Uh,
meet you too, but yeah, you can come around. We're here every day after Humanity Rising.
And where can
Yeah.
I find how to connect or how to come
Okay,
into?
are you, if we put your email in the chat, I'll send you a summary of Humanity Rising's activities today.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I need to do that. I need to save it before I turn it off. So can you put your email in there now, or do I
Yes.
have it already? I thought I got your email, but maybe not.
I put it several times in the chat, but I put it, it's there.
Oh,
You're
okay. We are one. Okay, got it. All right. Well, I'm going to save that, and I'll put you on the my daily report list, and
Thank you so
you'll get
much.
a chat people message every day.
All right,
Bye.
thank you so much.
Okay.
Have a good training. Good appetit. See you
Great
another
to
time.
Thank you.
Great
Okay.
to see you,
Pleasure to meet
Stan.
you.
Well,
Bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stan. We'll see you soon. All right, so what I was starting to say a moment ago is I'm certainly not here to shut down any conversations, actually quite the contrary. And so, but what I'd like to propose is that if someone wants to start a new topic that's quite different from the topic that we're talking about here, that you raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to start a new conversation that's completely different from what we're talking about. And then we get a show of hands. And if it's unanimous and everyone wants to go off on that new topic, wonderful, right? But if it's anything less than unanimous, then what we can do is create a breakout room. And the person starting the new topic can take whoever wants to follow to a breakout room and have that conversation as long as you all would like, right? That's my request. Is that?
That's the reason I did what I did. If you'll recall, before I got into it, I asked everybody if I could get into it because of where the lull that I perceived. No one seemed to indicate to me that I was a distraction of diametric quality. I might have been a little branch on a tree, but I certainly wasn't opposing diametrically the process. I was trying to flow into it, and I asked permission. I am a talker, and I'm on mute most of the time because I'm usually accompanying your words with song, because my mind does everything all at once. So I'll slow down and respect the group. But I did ask permission, and everybody, this is the signal. Princiota, we've had enough.
All right. Fair enough. But anyway, I'm actually proposing a process that whereby no one would actually have to be in the uncomfortable position of saying, hey, please stop, because from the outset of a branch, it's not necessarily clear that it's becoming an orthogonal branch. I retracted the words diametric because that's not appropriate, but orthogonal, yes. And so, okay, is that Leo checking out? Let me just see. I just want to make sure we give Leo a proper thank you. Time for my nap. Okay, awesome. Great to see you, Leo, and thanks so much for all your awesome contributions. So anyway, so I will honor your request, Joseph, and I also propose that that there also just be some self-awareness, like if we're true, if you're going to go off on an orthogonal tangent, to please, just take a vote. Just say, hey, can I have a showing of hands? Does everyone actually want me to go off on this new topic? And then we can see. And if it's unanimous, yes, great, carry on. But it only takes a few seconds to do that. Whereas, short of that, again, people don't know where you're going with it. And people will probably give you the benefit of the doubt that, well, this is probably constructive and consistent with the conversation that we're currently having. So let's give the guy some rope. And it's not until maybe 10 or 15 minutes later that it's like, wait a second, this is clearly not the case. So, but anyway, only you know where you're actually going in the conversation. That's why I would put the onus on yourself to actually just call a quick vote. Again, it only takes a few seconds, and then we honor everyone in that process. So, having said that, we've actually been recording for quite a while just on my clock here. And the conversation we were having, which I think is crucially important, because what it actually addresses literally every topic under the sun, because there are so many topics that are all very, very, very important to saving and healing and transforming life on Earth. That's why it's so important that we have this vast network of networks of conversations, and empower everyone to host whatever conversations they wish, and empower all of us to be able to find those conversations that we would like to participate in, right? So let me just take a quick showing of hands. Is this an interesting conversation for people? Thumbs up if yes, thumbs down if no, thumbs to the side if you have a different topic that you'd like to propose that we talk about.
Which topic are you, which topic are we voting on?
The topic that I'm proposing is the topic of the collective intelligence of humanity, the millions of conversations that are currently happening, becoming more accessible and more efficient for people to discern, to identify, to discover which conversations they want to participate in, and also having efficient on-ramps to those conversations that they identify as ones that they do want to participate in. So you can call it collective intelligence, and as I previously identified, there's two main questions that beg to be explored, for which I don't have an easy answer. And those two questions are, number one, why do we want to come together, right? And that question may not have any answer that's acceptable to everyone, or even a majority, or even a critical mass of participants, but it nonetheless begs exploration. Why are we coming together, right? And that question itself might be the topic of myriad conversations that each address that question from a different angle, paradigm, perspective, or combination of the same. Why are we coming together? Why are we here? What's our purpose as humanity coming together, right? The second question is then, which doesn't require that the first one be answered in order for it to be interesting, and that is how. How do we come together, right? And some aspects of how we come together can be addressed. For example, one aspect is, do we come together in a centralized way or a decentralized way, right? For example, every technology platform that I can name and that we're familiar with is centralized. Twitter is centralized. It may have way more freedom of speech than it had, a year ago, but nonetheless, it is centralized. Facebook, very centralized, right? And so, and decentralized means or networks or platforms or structures for this network of networks of groups and conversations to come together. That's something that we've speculated on, and I went to Twitter headquarters in San Francisco to promote back in December. It wasn't the most powerful approach imaginable, but it was an approach, and I tried it, and I'm sure my message got through to at least some folks, but didn't really get the traction that I was looking for. But nonetheless, that's an open question about decentralized versus centralized in terms of how do we come together? Do we use AI, and how do we use AI? We talked about that earlier as well. So anyway, there's lots of directions that we could go, and lots of facets to the question: how might we come together? Or how might humanity come together as a network of networks of conversations?
But
So anyway, that's what I'm proposing a vote on. If you're interested in that conversation, a thumbs up. If you're not, give me a thumbs down. If you have another topic you'd like to propose, thumbs to the side, and we can take it from there. But anyway, that's what I'm proposing. Humanity coming together. Why? How? Right? Other aspects of the why can be, my short answer, my one-word answer to the question of why should humanity come, and I'm just going to keep talking unless somebody raises their hand and says, no, sorry, I'd like to propose a different topic, in which case we can deal with that, vote on that. But the one-word answer to the question of why is polycrisis. Right now, we are living and dying in the midst of multiple existential crises, all coming to a head at once, and most of these growing exponentially as we speak. So we're in an extremely dangerous state, perilous state of life on Earth, and humanity's really vastly deficient response to the polycrisis. And so what I'm yes, sir.
Yeah, you're doing an excellent job of defining the problem to people who all know the problem. We all know the problem. You've defined the goal to fix the problem, and this is it. When you look to an answer, what should we do tomorrow, or you have to answer the question of how do we begin to even address solution conversations instead of repetitive gloom doom, problem stated, we know it, and my solution, for example, veganism is going to be put onto the world. That's my goal. Okay, what are you doing? Well, what can you do? Well, this is the kind of discussion I don't have all the answers to, but it's the kind of discussion I would like to be involved in. By the way, was your objection was because I introduced homelessness on AI when we were talking AI? Is that was right? Because that was a problem I presented.
No.
I'm retracing.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer your question if you'll give me 10 seconds. My answer to your question is, my objection was that you took us off onto a multi-minute or multi-10-minute conversation about vaccines, which didn't seem to have any direct bearing to
That's what I thought.
The previous topic space. And also, what you just said about what I was talking about was a complete mischaracterization. I was simply pointing to the polycrisis and saying that is the reason. That is one major reason why humanity should come together, is to address the polycrisis. I was certainly not going on and on about the polycrisis itself.
You weren't?
No, I was simply naming it, and and I was, in the process of naming it and talking about what it was, I talked about how dire it is and its exponential nature, but that took less than 20 seconds. all that was a little bit of context around the polycrisis. What I was suggesting is that is probably perhaps the biggest reason why it is absolutely urgent that humanity come together. So that's simply one facet of the why humanity should come together.
What is the polycrisis?
So okay, so that I'm glad you asked, and so that actually debunks Joseph, your hypothesis that we all know what the polycrisis is. We don't. So here's the polycrisis. The polycrisis is the combination of the following existential mega problems. Okay, exponential global warming, arguably the biggest problem we've got.
Let's spell that arguably, because I have an argument for it. Go on.
All right. So exponential global warming. Number two, the threat of nuclear war. The actuality of World War III. Many would argue, and I would agree, that we are actually in World War III, the early stages of World War III, right? The destruction of the biosphere, including the extinction of species. We're in the midst of the 6th mass extinction, right? Runaway overpopulation, the destruction of humanity across multiple dimensions, including malnutrition, so-called vaccines for man-made viruses such as COVID, addiction to cell phones, addiction to drugs, the destruction of the tribe, the extended family that you were talking about earlier. All of that goes into the destruction of humanity over and above all of the other the 3 mega crises that I mentioned earlier: global warming, destruction of the biosphere, World War III/nuclear war. And I could go on, but put all those together, and that's what I call the polycrisis, which is a term which emerged over the last couple of years to basically begin to make sense of the reality of so many existential crises coming to a head at once and going exponential at once. That's what I refer to as the polycrisis. And that's what I was referring to as a very good reason, among others, for humanity to come together. That's like the most urgent reason, is that we need to deal with this polycrisis, or it will deal with us by wiping us out. You know, AI itself is another element of the polycrisis, right? The political duopoly of the United States, the runaway concentration of wealth. So there's so many crises that make up the polycrisis.
And that's why I say that your conversation, it does not give us a modicum toward answering, except the concept that communal conversation will solve it. And you have defined the problem very well to people who already knew the individual things that you lumped into one word that somebody didn't understand. We know the problem. And my time is limited. I would love to discuss with you how you're going to get those Zoom conversations to be known to AI, so AI can direct you to them without their agreement. And they must agree to have their contents known, or you're going to have to be like the NSA and know who's talking now about what. Every moment of the day, you need to know who's on Zoom, under what language, where in the world, what are they discussing. I need that information. You need to be the NSA, or you do need centralization, where Zoom callers like me say to you, this is my bio, this is my thing on a reparation that I do every Saturday. We come to discuss the concept of reparation at 10 o'clock. We will be on for an hour. I'm also on Zoom for 1,740 some odds at noon Alaska time. I'm an artist with this background. I'll gladly give that up. To who? I need a centralized reciprocal of it, and you should start that now. You should be what you're looking for. You should have a page where I could register myself. You should be the center of this and tell people at any time as much as you know about 10 different Zoom calls, and suddenly you're Craigslist and you've got 10 million. It would be beautiful for you to have that problem. Go and be the person you're looking to be. Start us. I'll register, for God's sake. If people want to know what the hell's going on, connect them. Don't sit there and wallow me with your time telling me about World War III. You know, we're not in World War III, you damn idiot. We're still in World War I. It never ended. We just transfer it from country to country, from president to president. We have.
All right, I just removed Joseph from the meeting for calling me a damn idiot. I thought that was going a bit too far, and a red card level violation of basic courtesy here. So I hope he learns from that, and look forward to seeing him back when he's better behaved. But actually, I really liked some of the points he was making about, hey, go ahead and do it. Right. That I really liked. I thought we were onto something there. It looks like you're on mute there, Carol Sue. And actually, that's actually where I would love to get to. The go ahead and do it, you know, how to do it is a very interesting question. And that's one we were exploring for several hours actually on Tuesday. And where we netted out in that conversation, actually what we were talking about in that conversation was, how do we do it in terms of how do we do it in a decentralized way? He's saying start it in a centralized way. There are arguments to be made for both. But I think that warrants some conversation. I don't think it's something that we're ready to just do. I think we need to talk about, you know, what is the it? And that, again, begs two questions. Why do we want to come together, and how do we come together? We've talked about the why for a bit. And we've talked about elements of the how, such as the use of AI and transcripts, etc., at a high level. And those elements of the how can be bundled together in a centralized way or in a decentralized way. Anyway, I'm going to pass the feather because I don't like to talk too much at a stretch. Passing the feather.
I like to share something, like some ideas. How about I just mentioned it before in your Zoom room, Jamin, before we jumped in this field visit, and probably I can share it here as well. I just shared with you that I emailed Holiness Dalai Lama, also his secretary, to be on the Unity Week. Well, Unity Week with two sisters of mine. They back me up with their organization as well. And I had, when you shared about how we can come together with a decentralized idea, still having our safe space, the privacy, you know, and but collaborate and unite networks and come together in several times, you know. I had the idea, why not, when you talk about field visiting, I really like this idea because for example, here in Switzerland, we have the Riken Institute of the oldest Tibetan monastery. And why not ask them, invite them to have a conversation about these topics as with you, with Kindred Spirit or whatever you like to come, and we can invite other organizations, and then we sit together and discuss, and then we can have it like field group visits, probably every week or every twice a month or whatever. And each time there is another host inviting, and so we have kind of a wandering host gathering. We share, there's so that it stays decentralized, but the network is growing by interest of the people. That's what is coming to my mind. And the other thing is, mass meditations really work like Unify is doing since many years. This I would also like to bring into consideration. And that's it for the moment. What I love to share. I love to hear your comments, your response to that too, and your ideas.
Yeah, I love the idea of bringing multiple organizations together and then having, a series of meetings where there are different hosts. I think that's a great idea. And I also love the idea of mass meditation. And in terms of the bringing together of a bunch of organizations to basically create some new meetings where the hosting gets shared around. In addition to that, I think there are just gigatons of low-hanging fruit in all of the Zoom meetings that are already happening, right? And so, but how do we find each other, right? Well, just as Zoom has provided a number of tools to enable the recording and sharing of meetings, which by default are private. By default, no Zoom meeting is broadcast, recorded, transcribed, blah, 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 blah. It's only up to the participants to make that happen. I would actually think that the quickest path to getting a planetary collective intelligence together on the nature of what we've been talking about, the quickest pathway to that, I believe, would be for Zoom itself as a company to have a simple add-on that basically says, hey, if you've got a recurring meeting that's open to the public, check this checkbox, right? And we will gladly add it to the public directory of Zoom meetings, right? One of the reasons not to do that is, of course, the whole Zoom bombing issue, which has some fairly straightforward solutions, one of which we thought of, but I won't go into the details of that just yet. But it's just very, very fairly straightforward, which basically says, have some rooms where people can come and check in, and if they pass, something like the Turing test, but for Zoom bombers, right? Are you here with good intentions, or are you just here because you're high and you want to disrupt legitimate Zoom meetings? Then you get kicked out, and then you can't come back until whatever, 24 hours later or whatever it is. But these could be just kind of let's just call them verification Zoom rooms where you go to get verified, you go to get certified, whether for a particular period of time or just for the day or whatever. But anyway, that's a tangent that I don't want to go down. I just wanted to name that there, but that would be the most efficient way, the fastest and most efficient if Zoom were to actually, make that available as a feature, right?
Can you ask the leader of the Zoom organization to do that? A request, an inquiry?
Yeah, it's certainly possible. In fact, I sponsored one of my colleagues to go to the big Zoom conference, that annual Zoom conference back in early 2020. And he went and he actually talked with the CEO and founder of Zoom, briefly, but had a powerful conversation. We didn't yet have that concept of a directory, but bottom line, it is possible to talk with the CEO of Zoom about that. The conference is probably the most direct way to make that happen, but another way would be to just reach out directly to the appropriate person or department at Zoom and say, hey, here's this huge opportunity. So that's a centralized way to address this opportunity.
Yes.
And in terms of decentralized ways, we talked on Tuesday about using hashtags. You and I spoke on Sunday about that as well. But now I don't think you were there for the conversation when we spoke with James, where James, this is later in the conversation on Tuesday, where James said, look, Jamin, none of this hashtag stuff makes any sense to me. I think you're getting ahead of yourself. I think the conversation that needs to happen first is that we first have the kind of conversation that we've been having right here in this Zoom room for now several hours, off and on, which is that hey, let's talk about the need to come together first and foremost. The why of coming together and the vision of coming together, independent of the technicals of the how. The how comes later, right?
Yeah.
First we have to talk about the importance of coming to Switzerland before we get on, the airline websites and start looking for, what's the best airplane ticket to buy. Why come to Switzerland? Okay. So
can I add something to that?
Please.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea to have the why there and the mission, the whole thing. And then I would recommend as an idea to do pilot projects simultaneously, or whatever time you like to have. And then you see what progresses most, where are the failures, how can we do it better in a better way, and then you find out what's the best way. Probably we have several threads how we can do that, not only one. Sometimes there are 3 or 4 or 5 solutions how we do that, and the why is there. We don't have to pick up one. We can. I would. If I would do that, if I would be an engineer, I would try out different projects and then see what gives a spark, what is really working.
Yeah. And I think that's how it should be. I don't think there is one answer to this.
Yeah, that's why you are collecting ideas, and that's wonderful what you do. So I think we're very close. You are how your way, how you you ask and you find threats and solutions. You're very close to different kind of solutions. And the why we discussed already. I think we were very close to get a start, and then take it from there.
Okay, so let's brainstorm a list of these different possible ways of how, right? Because I think the why, frankly, is pretty obvious, right?
Yeah.
Polycrisis, right?
Yeah.
Nuclear war, exponential global warming. I mean, the list is long and distinguished, and per Joseph's point, we all know it. Maybe we hadn't heard the term polycrisis before, but I think it's an important term. But anyway, we all know the why. So let's brainstorm. Let's brainstorm the how. Let's see here. Oh, by the way, before we jump into that, let me just take a quick pause and just ask. Oh, looks like Carol, she just left. She didn't actually say why she left or if she was coming back or anything like that. So anyway, hopefully she'll come back. But I just wanted to see if there were any questions or comments or concerns about my having ejected Joseph from the room after he said some very insulting words, which I wrote down, but I don't want to repeat unless anyone needs to hear them. Any comments or concerns about that?
Well, different people have different kind of ways how you talk to each other. And I'm in your Zoom room. I wouldn't have just click him off. I would had rather a conversation with him and discuss, stop you overboard now, and solve it in a Zoom room. Don't otherwise you have to come back and then we talk. I like to do direct solution orientated corrections when the talk is getting off. So you still have or probably go with him in another Zoom in a Zoom and correct that, and then you come back together as well. That would be more efficient. That's what I would yeah.
Yeah, we have had these Zoom meetings for over 3 years now, where we meet every Friday with very few exceptions for 24 hours. And though in reality, maybe we're here for 18 hours and only a couple of people are falling asleep for the last 6. But anyway, my point is we've been doing this for a long time, and that's just the block party. And we've been doing collective meetings on Zoom, and before that on Google Hangouts for several years prior to that. So we've been at this for quite a while. We used to take that approach where if someone was being rude, we'd talk with them and work with them and all that. And we found out that that was a tremendous waste of time and energy, and that it's actually far more efficient and effective and just proper from the culture and perspective where we're operating from, to just kick them out pretty much immediately. If they started getting violent, that was violent. That was verbal violence. Yeah. And so we've developed a zero tolerance policy for that nature of violence. But anyway.
Did he know that? Did you introduce that to him, or you just kicked him out?
I just kicked him out. I was personally not willing, either as an individual or as the person responsible for this Zoom room, to tolerate even 5 more seconds of that kind of abuse, or just leaving that abuse on the table.
And
yeah,
that's fine with me, and it's your way. That's fine.
Okay. So let's brainstorm. different possible ways.
Mhm. And just let your thoughts flow, because you already had so much ideas. Just write it down. Write it down.
Okay.
And then yeah, first write it all down and then take it from there.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm both writing down and voice dictating, and of course we're recording here. In fact, let me just start a new recording here.